Good evening, Westport, and welcome. I'm Bill Harmer, the Executive Director of the Westport Library. The library is proud to once again partner with Team Westport to support the annual Teen Diversity Essay Contest. Back in March, what seems like a lifetime ago, the award ceremony was postponed due to the COVID-19 crisis. We are so pleased now to present this virtual award ceremony to you live from the forum inside the Westport Library so that our three finalists from this year's contest can share their extraordinary essays with our community. While last year's Westport essay focused on microaggressions, this year's challenge asked the essayists to examine stereotypes, which often inspire microaggressions and fuel bias and overt racism. This year we had 35 applicants, and I congratulate and thank all of them for their thought-provoking, well-documented, and carefully written essays. Freedom of expression and unfettered access to information are rights that form part of the bedrock of our constitutional democracy. We expect people to self-govern, but to do so responsibly and effectively. In order to make sound decisions and choices, our citizens must be well informed. And the best place to become informed is the public library, a place that Andrew Carnegie called the cradle of democracy. As the late Vartan Gregorian, a great historian and champion of libraries, once said, libraries contain the heritage of humanity, the record of its triumphs and failures, its intellectual, scientific, and artistic achievements, and its collective memory. They are a source of knowledge, scholarship, and wisdom. They are an institution withal where the left and the right, God and the devil, are together classified and retained in order to teach us what to emulate and what not to repeat. This sort of civic engagement is a fundamentally hopeful quest, one we are pursuing with this tonight's program. I can think of no safer or more unbiased environment for these young essayists to inform us about sensitive issues affecting their lives and their community than the Westport Library, where all opinions are valued and heard. Providing this venue to explore and discuss this uncomfortable topic is not only my duty, but an honor and a privilege. And now, without further ado, I'd like to invite First Selectman Jim Marpy to share a few thoughts.
Thank you, Bill. On behalf of the town of Westport, it's my pleasure to be here every year for the Teen Essay Diversity Contest Award. It's amazing to me to read the essays that these young women and men put together. It's truly a reflection of the quality of the education in our community and the quality of diversity in our community as well, and the perspectives that are on it. This really is one of my favorite evenings. And on behalf of the town of Westport, I want to thank the Westport Library for hosting this important event. We've hosted it here, not necessarily physically in this space. Now, this is actually our first year in this space, but we were able to welcome the students that are here and their families, and it's really a great opportunity. And I also want to congratulate Team Westport. Team Westport is a town-wide committee that's established, reporting to my office, and for over 20 years has really had a remarkable impact on our community, and never more so than now, in the challenges and also the opportunities that we're facing as we go through a period in our lives that is historic and unparalleled, and frankly one that's opening a great new future for our country and for our community. And again, I want to congratulate the young women and men who are here tonight, whose essays I've had the opportunity to read. Every one of them is equally moving and personal, and I think that's what really makes the difference in the end, that this is not just some abstract discussion of concept, but it's a very personalized view as it applies to their lives. And I think all of you will enjoy listening to them and hearing a very moving and meaningful presentation from each. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight to join them. I'm thrilled on behalf of the town of Westport that we have this opportunity to once again hear our teens, our students from Staples High School participate in this great opportunity. And now it's my real privilege to introduce the chairman of Team Westport, who's been forever that chairman, but has really made a personal impact, not just on the community, but also in my life personally. And I consider Harold Bailey to be a friend and a true contributor to the quality of life in our community. So without further ado, let me introduce Harold Bailey, Chairman of Team Westport.
Jim, I'm going to have to say thank you very much. You've caught me at an uncharacteristic loss for words. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I want to welcome everyone on behalf of Team Westport. I need to say up front that our responsibility, our mission as a committee for the town of Westport is to increasingly make Westport a more welcoming place with respect to race, religion, ethnicity, LGBTQ issues, and gender presentation. And I think you'll see a good deal of that reflected in tonight's wonderful essays that have been put together. The first thing I need to do is to apologize to the winners. Over the past 7 years, we have put the essayists through a number of different hoops that they've had to jump through, from with our white privilege essay, having people be involved from all over the world who had an opinion to broach, and the concomitant issues that came with that, to having, in some cases, to postpone it for some reason or another, but only for a couple of weeks. We have never had anything like a pandemic where not only can you not have the ceremony that we had planned in April, but we had to ask that the essayists actually wait and wait and wait for an unknown time at which we'd be able to get back into this building. I have to say, with respect to this building, we were just thrilled 3 years ago when we heard that we could actually hold a meeting of this kind with the essay Revelation and potentially have 400 or 500 folks that would actually physically be here. And now we're excited just to have 20 to 25 here with the coronavirus. But regardless, the quality and the caliber of the work this year is just tremendous. And I want you to know that the essayists to know that they are now part of a long tradition of not only beautifully written works, but works that really make a difference in the way that the town operates. Our set of school recommendations, our work with the Westport school system, the town's understanding about some of the issues that the Black Lives Matter recent marches and effort have made for the rest of the nation, were already relatively clear here in Westport because of some of those essays that were written by your predecessors. So we thank you very much for that. I'm now going to move on, though, to how we actually go through coming up with the idea. And so the next person up is the person who came up, who was the brainchild of this idea for us some 8 years ago almost, when we started this, and have her explain, as the head of the essay committee, how this actually came to be and how it works. Susan Ellis.
Good evening. It's wonderful to see you here. It would be great if we had 400 people here with you, but it is great to see you here tonight. The Team Westport, this is our 8th essay contest. And the way we go about it is a sort of messy process, because we come up with ideas, we bandy them about, we think about them. I usually try to write up something, and then I get feedback from other people, and we talk some more. And finally, we get to a point where we're exhausted, or we think, no, this really is good. We really are happy with what we've got, and this is what we would like to present to the community. And I think we ought to mention that this essay contest is open to Westport High School students if they attend school in Westport, or if they live in Westport and attend school outside of Westport. This year, our winners all happen to be Staples graduates, which is certainly a tribute to the kind of education that students get at Staples High School. I'm going to quickly read this essay topic, although everybody here knows it well, because people at home clearly will not. This year, the topic says, a stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified idea or image of a person, frequently based on that person's race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Stereotypes are often unconscious and may be introduced and reinforced intentionally or unwittingly by many sources, including family, peers, the popular media, curricula, and society at large. As Harold Bailey mentioned, last year's topic focused on microaggressions. This essay challenge asked students to examine stereotypes, which often inspire microaggressions and fuel bias and overt racism. The actual challenge was, in 1,000 words or fewer, describe your experiences witnessing, delivering, and or being subjected to stereotypes focused on race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and or gender identity, and describe the likely impact that such experiences have upon the recipients. Consider steps that you believe organizations, schools, and or individuals could take to counteract stereotypes, whether as initiator, recipient, or witness. Our essay contest is judged every year. In fact, Dr. Judy Hamer, who will be up in a minute to tell you the process they go through, it's judged by several people. Dr. Judy Hamer is our chair of the judge committee. Matt Giza, who is the teen librarian here at Westport Library, is on that committee. Andy Friedland, associate director of the Anti-Defamation League, is, and Ramin Ganeshram, who is the executive director of the Westport History Museum. So I'm inviting Dr. Judy Hamer to come up and tell you how this committee goes about its work. Thank you.
Oh, I'm supposed to look into that camera instead of looking at you. That's very weird. So a word about the way the judging takes place. First of all, it's anonymous. We get the essays after they have been scrubbed of all identifying details by the Human Resources Department of Westport. We don't know who the writers are, their names, their addresses, the schools they went to, the class they're in. We don't know anything about them. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting them for the first time tonight, which is delightful. The judges in this case, there were 4 of us, read the essays separately, and we judge those essays based on a scoring sheet, which I'll get into in a minute. Then we meet together. In this case, of course, it was a Zoom meeting, and we basically have long discussions until we come to a consensus about who the top 3 winners are. Sometimes it's a very quick discussion. Sometimes when I've been with the judges, it's taken us an hour or an hour and a half. Okay, so what is this scoring sheet that we have looked at? There are basically 6 items. And as I tell you about the items, you'll realize as readers that this is what you read for, even though you have probably never articulated it. First of all, you look for ideas. What's the main message? What are the supporting materials that support that message? The question really is there a focus? Does it have relevant, interesting information? Then the organization, which of course is the structure for the ideas. Is there a logical and sometimes intriguing pattern or sequence of ideas? Does the structure enhance those ideas? We're also looking at voice. Basically, does the essay sound like it was written by a person or written by a machine? We want to know what the unique perspective of the writer was, shown through the use of compelling ideas, engaging language, revealing details. In other words, if this essay were longer than the 1,000-word limit, would I keep on reading it? The fourth one is word choice. Is the language rich? Is it colorful? Is it precise? Is it moving? Is it enlightening? Are there vivid pictures that I can see? Then we look at sentence fluency, the rhythm and the flow of the language, the sounds of the word patterns, the way the writing plays to the ear. Can the reader feel the rhythm? And of course, finally, we look at conventions, the mechanical correctness of the piece, the spelling, the punctuation, the capitalization, the grammar usage, paragraphing. I must say, in the years that I've been looking at essays from Westport students, there is very rarely anything to say about your use of conventions. It's basically perfect. We judges are honored, we're humbled, we're delighted to read these interesting, thoughtful, probing essays. We saw moving language, a writer who describes how she took on the stereotypes of herself, and what she said was, I othered myself to protect myself. Or a writer who asks probing questions. A boy who doesn't fit the flamboyant stereotype of a gay man. He asked, was I genuinely gay or just a poser? A thoughtful comment on the dumb blonde stereotype. I bet you guys haven't thought about that stereotype. How do you know who I am? By how I look. So it was a delight to read these, and it will be a delight to meet all of you. Thank you.
My apologies. Thank you very much, Judy, for going through that. And now let's get on to the three essayists and the winners. Let me just say first, in her new book, Isabel Wilkerson brings the concept of caste to the whole issue of race in the United States. And she looks at it as a pyramid with the hierarchies of whiteness on the top and being black on the bottom. But then she talks about all the different gradations in between, various races and intersectionalities, in order to really animate the dynamic and really analyze the dynamic of race in this country. What we're going to hear now are three essays which really give us a bit of a view into those arenas that are very much Westport locally, very personal, but in many ways quite effective universally. So let me begin now, and so I should introduce, before I go any further, the three finalists who have been publicly announced for some months now. And they are Sahiba Dhindsa, Victoria Holoubek-Sebok, and Zachary Terrillion. Okay? For third place tonight, I want to announce the award of $500 and third place award for this for the essay Bombshell by Victoria Holoubek-Sebok. Victoria?
Blue-eyed, blonde-haired, athletic, female. With just those words, you already have a picture in your mind of who I am, or who you think I am. The dumb blonde persona is an excruciatingly common stereotype, but one that is often overlooked. Everyone knows of it, yet no one considers it to be a legitimate offense. Compared to others, it appears to be trivial, merely a lighthearted joke. However, the constant repetition and application of this stereotype on both personal and general levels has transformed the label into something with much more substance and impact than many can see. In an era of political correctness and common decency, it's important to acknowledge that this stereotype in no way is any comparison to those applied with strong racial, religious, or truly hateful undertones. I understand that I am privileged in numerous ways and want to make clear that I would never compare my experiences to the endless numbers of minorities who face racism and discrimination daily, any member of the LGBTQ+ community who experience violence or negativity for being who they are, or any other individual who has to live through the hardships of prejudice and hate. Though all examples, including my own, are instances of assumption and judgment based on physicality, the stereotype that I am labeled with is at a lower degree than others, and that should be made clear. Despite this, being classified as the common dumb blonde is a hurtful label that I have faced my entire life. People repeatedly making assumptions about who I am from the way that I look impedes my mindset and the way that I view myself. However, it is not only the direct labeling I experience that makes an impact. The media presence of this stereotype is outstanding and has its own consequences. Actresses like Marilyn Monroe have been characterized as naive and materialistic, acting as merely symbols of attraction when they have significantly more substance. Monroe was classified as a blonde bombshell and was virtually only casted for parts which represented that. The color of her hair was enough to form her identity, and her true self was hidden by the layering of the same character over and over. People began to perceive her as the character she played because of the constant repetition of the same persona. No matter how far her personality strayed from that of a dumb blonde, it did not matter. People saw this stereotype and transformed it into who Marilyn was. The overwhelming presence of stereotypes in the media also has effects on its consumers. People can second-guess themselves and be overly critical when they are constantly surrounded by these personas. No matter the stereotype, seeing its representation can prompt insecurities and doubts within oneself. I've often been unsure of my own intellect because of these reasons. I see negativity inflicted on women as soon as I open Instagram. Anonymous accounts criticizing models or people of influence, saying that their words should not be taken seriously because they are blonde and therefore incompetent. Oftentimes in my classes, I can be confident in an answer but hesitate sharing it aloud, too afraid of what my classmates or teacher will think of it. The dumb blonde stereotype has created a paranoia in my brain, leading me to wonder if I do embody the characteristics of this persona. Whether it be in school, at home, or by myself, I'm never free of the labels I am assigned. From people all around me to even myself, my integrity and intelligence are constantly in question. In most cases, a family is made up of the people that know you the most, the people that will always support you. Never did I think that those same people would make such a bold assumption of my character. I've always been athletic and have played a variety of sports, but exercise has never been an interest of mine, nor something I had really thought about until one Christmas day when my grandparents gave my siblings identical coding sets and gave me exercise equipment instead. I'd never given my grandparents any reason to think that I would want a core exercise ball and a set of weights over the coding sets my siblings received, and yet that's what I got. Blondes have commonly been classified as vain and shallow, notorious for only caring about the way that they look. My blonde hair represented a stereotype so I was assumed to be the stereotype, and appearance was taken as my main priority. Meanwhile, I would have much preferred experimenting with coding just like my siblings. This particular occasion promoted a spiral of self-increasing awareness in the way that I look and the way others perceive me. I've since found myself constantly needing to prove my integrity to those around me. In my experience, the application of the dumb blonde stereotype is rarely intentional, though there are instances of real hostility and communicated through stereotypes. I believe that labeling in this manner is most often a subconscious ordeal. Because of this, reasoning is not the necessary method to eliminate the beliefs and stereotypes. Raising awareness of the presence of stereotypes is. Spreading consciousness is the best way to begin the decrease of unfair judgments, because ensuring that people know that these stereotypes exist will prompt them to be conscious of the way that they may regard others. Change may seem like an ambitious request, but all we need is a few people. These people can initiate the process and share it amongst the people in their lives, and from there it can take off, growing from towns to cities to countries. The recognition of stereotypes will spread like wildfire. If globally and as a community we can expand our wealth of knowledge and share insights with our peers, everyone will gain a greater understanding of their impact on those who surround them.
Thank you. Very much appreciated, Tori. I should say that Tori's also a sophomore at Staples, a rising junior, and that makes the essay all the more remarkable. Now for second place and the $750 reward. The essay is Stereotypes, Crippling Standards by Zachary Terrillion.
Stereotypes are a fixture of human Take the mask off. Stereotypes are a fixture of human society. Groups always look towards other groups and create pictures of their surfaces before exploring their depths. They are snapshots that have molded entire perceptions. These snapshots in their narrow borders have been hard to escape. They are often a burden, sometimes a blessing, but for me they are an ideal to reach. I've always forced myself to fit these societal Polaroids. For better or worse, I have been defined by these delusional struggles. To begin, what comes to mind when you think of a gay man? Flamboyant, outgoing, sassy? It is these depictions that make up most of the representation, whether it be in dated 90s sitcoms or even recent gay-produced works such as RuPaul's Drag Race or Queer Eye, both of which I still adore. I'm not saying these contemporary effeminate representations are insensitive or even inaccurate, but they are a single story that has come to dominate the gazes of the heterosexual mainstream. They encompass a vision of a traditional gay man, how he walks, talks, and acts. To be considered genuinely gay, I must be fabulous and extroverted, just like the ones on TV. Before I held myself to standards of queerness, however, I dealt with standards of masculinity. I was never one for sports, which can be difficult as a little kid wanting to fit in with all the other little boys. When my parents thrust me into the world of pee-wee soccer, I rejected the ball and ran about the field pretending to be a Jedi. My parents, to their credit, realized manly sports were not my forte, and my overactive imagination was put to practical use within the realm of theater, an environment in which many gay people thrive. It was here where my queer and creative facets came to fruition, as a supportive space was provided for these elements to emerge without fear of derision. Stereotypes and expectations were not a player in the fluidity of improv or amateur playwriting. Still, because of being exposed to such loving communities from such a young age, I never felt the need to speak up for myself. Thus, my introversion grew, and my burgeoning queerness became withheld as no reason was provided for it to arise and be defended. It was a presence in my life, but not readily embraced or expressed. It was a strange median between self-hatred and love. Self-tolerance is how I would describe it. I expected my queerness to finally manifest in all its rainbow-colored flamboyance in high school. But, like the soccer fields of yore, I was the odd one out. The gay culture present was the same confident, expressive vision glimpsed on TV. Gays who preferred reading in corners or sitting on their phones at the edges of dance floors proved a rare find. I was not just clashing with standards of masculinity, as many gay men do, but also gayness itself. I somehow fit into neither societal trope. I loved to spill the tea. I adopted the feminine gestures, shows, and films so loved to emulate, but I also enjoyed video games and superheroes, familiar tropes of generalized masculinity. I cannot connect with others from either spectrum of sexuality, as I seemed to inhabit elements of both, but resided in neither. Because of these stereotypical divides, my introversion would soon devolve into social anxiety and immense insecurity, dreading rehearsals and classes that were once highlights of my week. I figured the only way to achieve social success was to emphasize my queerness above all else, to play right into the tropes society had established for me, even if it did not connect to my personality. My anxiety peaked the summer before my sophomore year when I attended a sleepaway program for the first time. Here, my plan to play up the gay would take effect. I escalated my flamboyant mannerisms, exaggerated my tone of voice, and emphasized that I was, in fact, gay, very gay. My earnest attempts backfired spectacularly. My anxiety only worsened by the end of the program, with not a single friend gained and even more insecurity at top. I wondered whether I was genuinely gay or just some poser. Was I worthy of being in the company of Jonathan Van Ness? Or was I just some guy who liked other guys? Through all these struggles, however, one aspect of my identity that society could not pin down remained constant, that being the creativity that bloomed on the soccer field, theater, and currently my writing. Through writing, I had a voice true to myself, finding a diverse community of people through which I could thrive and depend on. A community discovered not by playing up parts of myself to adhere to the rules of stereotypes, but instead through the expression of my multifaceted truth. All my interests and traits, both masculine and feminine, could be put into highly dynamic works of prose and poetry. These were pieces that explored the nuances of queerness that the media cannot. Overall, I had never taken stereotypes as villainizing in the conventional sense. I've not suffered through discrimination or oppression instigated by their hand. Instead, they worked to force me into a box, a servant following the will of a director and a performance society mandates. However, through honing my traits, those too complex and niche to be generalized, these stereotypes no longer must apply. One can discover their truth through distinction in the face of generalization. We must encourage our marginalized youth to explore the nuanced parts of themselves in order to evade standards and achieve authenticity. Only then will the malign snapshots of yore fade away, so more layered, accommodating portraits may come to the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary, and congratulations again. Zachary's heading off to Oberlin, having just recently graduated from Staples. And now, of course, our first place winner tonight, who is a recent graduate, just graduated from Staples, and that is Sahiba Dhindsa, and she will read her essay, Stereotypes, Stories, and the Worlds We Create. Congratulations. And as she comes up, I should say also, there's an award of $1,000 that goes along with it.
Stereotypes are reductions. In a culture of compression, stereotypes reduce long, rich stories into a few descriptive words. By the time we realize what stereotypes are, and the damage they do, we have already started internalizing the very ideas from which we seek to break free. From a young age, I faced many stereotypes. It was easiest for me to assume that others' actions against me were based on stereotypes rooted in my skin color. I failed to see that it was so much more than just my skin color. As a young Sikh American woman, religion and race-based stereotypes have driven the microaggressions I have faced in my school and town. In elementary school, I understood that the lack of knowledge on Sikhism led people to assume I was part of a strange tribal religion that forced me to not cut my hair. I didn't tell my peers I was Sikh for 11 years to avoid assumptions about my personal life. In 8th grade, I had a classmate tell me that I should be his slave because my skin was brown. My gut response was to be defensive. I lashed out and told him that he needed to find a better set of jokes. I was astounded that anyone would say that to me. Through self-reflection years later, I still find it difficult to understand the origin of my classmates' comments. Because I felt so hurt by these words, and I felt so small that my whole identity lay in my skin color, I started subconsciously internalizing these ideas. When I described myself, I was a brown Indian girl who was Sikh, and that was it. When I saw others, I immediately differentiated them from myself before they had a chance to differentiate me. I othered myself to protect myself. Every person who was not on my side was the threat. I started stereotyping my white peers out of my own frustration. Angry and frustrated that I was required to defend myself, I started seeing them as ignorant, difficult, and uninterested in making a social change. Freshman year, I had a disagreement with a boy sitting a few seats away from me. I don't remember what the disagreement was about, but I do remember what he said to me. Trump's gonna send you back to wherever you came from. It was his final statement, a way to shut me up and make me insecure about my skin color and my ethnicity. While I brushed it off in the moment, it pained me to hear such a hateful comment. I had worked so hard to create a place for myself in this community, to feel as though I was no different than anyone else despite having a different skin color and religious background. In that moment, I felt that the confidence I had built for all these years was crumbling. Being brown, being Indian, being Sikh didn't make me any more immune to hate speech. The stereotype that because I'm brown, I'm not American and I don't belong here has dominated much of the narrative that others have written for me. 2 years ago, for my US History final, my group and I did a presentation on the history of Sikh discrimination in America. At the end of our presentation, my teacher asked me about the correct pronunciation of Sikh and the significance of turbans. To others, it may have been a normal expression of curiosity, but to me, it was more. It was an individual approaching me from a position of inquiry rather than a position of seeking to reduce me for the sake of justification. I now realize that this was a turning point in realizing that I did not have to define myself with a few words simply because some of my peers had done so to me. I could take those words and rewrite my story and then share it back with others. I could remove those phrases and instead define myself through the rich story I know I have. Through this, I learned the true power of storytelling. Storytelling is so much more than simply sharing anecdotes and life experiences. Storytelling is fighting against the desire to define someone or something in a few words. Instead, it is a way to allow one to look at people with a nuance that does justice to their spirit, who they are, what they represent, and what they aspire to be. We live in a world where everything is compressed and simplified. We've shortened our words from long phone conversations to texts to simple comments on social media. We communicate less and less with each other, and by virtue of that compression, compassion becomes harder to come by. I knew if I had gone through this journey of confronting stereotypes and reimagining myself, my other peers must have gone through it as well. Due to my desire to hear the stories of others and share my own, I created a club called Unity and Diversity with a friend. The club's aim was to work on minimizing stereotypes through storytelling. Beyond advocacy, the club became a safe space for individuals from varying racial, religious, ethnic, and sexual orientation backgrounds to tell their stories. I would like to summarize my experiences and ideas in a few ways. First, I hope my experiences serve as a reminder that racism and prejudice based in ignorance is not a thing of the past. Even in a community as inclusive as our own, it exists. Second, I want to express how the acknowledgement and support of an educator can make a monumental difference in the life of a student experiencing microaggressions on a regular basis. Third, there are few things as therapeutic as being able to share your own experience and being heard by your peers and your teachers. We often underestimate the importance of telling your authentic story, a story that has been defined entirely by you. These are the collective stories that change the world. Thank you.
Sahiba, thank you very much. And Sahiba will be headed off to Cornell shortly. I want to thank all the winners tonight, each one of the essayists, for what you brought to the table. Your courageousness and the talent that you exhibited is just tremendous. And we are genuinely honored to add this to our inventory of wonderful essays that we've had over the years. So again, I want to thank the parents and the friends who are here tonight as well, and all the families that are involved, and to wish you all the very best. Thanks again. And for anyone who is viewing now, in case you didn't see all of the webcasts that we have here, or you want to make sure that you have friends who didn't see it, we are going to have the URL posted, which you can utilize in order to view this again. If you viewed this via URL that you already have, you'll be able to use that same one. And shortly, I think within a few minutes, we're going to have that posted so that you're able to watch the entire ceremony again. But again, congratulations to our essayists, and thank you all for attending tonight. Take care.